continue our discussion of ways to save for college by going into a little more detail about some of these savings instruments, because we left off last time listing out some different savings and investing instruments and talking about how they differ basically on the time horizon involved and the level of risk. So we talked about a few different instruments. So what I want to do is go through each one individually and talk about the advantages and disadvantages. So let's start with savings accounts. So a savings account is traditionally the way that we save money. I remember being a kid and having my passbook account, and you had a physical book that you took to the bank, and you gave it to the teller when you wanted to deposit money or when you wanted to take money out, and they would record that transaction in your book and give it back to you. So now things are a lot more computerized and electronic, but that's where that term passbook came from, because you used to have a little book that you took to the bank. So as long as you keep your money in your savings account, the bank is going to pay you interest, and that's how your money grows. So the most common kind of savings account is what's called a statement savings account. And for that account, the bank sends you a statement that details all of your deposits and withdrawals. So it's the replacement of the passbook savings account. So our passbook has now become a statement. And so it details all of your deposits and withdrawals and the interest that you've earned either once a month or once a quarter, which is every 3 months. And then the interest rates for these accounts are usually lower than for other types of savings instruments, but you can open a savings account with not a lot of money. So some of those other accounts are going to require that you put more money in and maybe give you some restrictions on when you can take it out, because with a statement savings account, you can withdraw your money whenever you like. So let's talk about advantages and disadvantages. So these make us happy, and I'm big on happy faces and sad faces. These make us sad. A couple emojis there for you. So our advantages on the savings account is that our money is easy to access. You don't have to leave it in the bank for a specific amount of time. You can take it out with no penalty. The interest rates usually increase as general interest rates increase. So we can kind of say with the economy, if interest rates in the economy go up, then the interest rate on your statement savings account should go up. And you can open it with a small amount of money. So those are the typical advantages of a statement savings account. So now let's look at the disadvantages. So on the downside, the interest rates may be a little bit lower than other options, but that's typically because you have so much flexibility in terms of being able to withdraw whenever you want. But also, what do they say? What goes up must come down. So the rates will also decrease with the economy. So what we're getting at here on this line, whoops, okay, maybe that color wasn't a good idea, is that we have variable interest rates. And then one more disadvantage is that they may charge you a fee if your balance drops below a certain level. Now, usually on a student account, they won't do that. They'll waive all those fees. But on a regular account, they might charge you a fee. Let's move on to our next type of savings instrument. I need another page. Okay, my new page is at the top. With my next type of account, this is the certificate of deposit. So we said that that was also called a CD. So with a CD, I've got advantages again and disadvantages. Or we can say positives and negatives. The first one, well, first let's talk about what this certificate of deposit is. These are accounts where people deposit a specific amount of money for a specific time period. So you could have a 1-year CD, a 2-year CD, and so on. So you might put $500 into a CD for 6 months or maybe even a year. And generally, the longer you agree to put that money aside in this CD, the higher the interest rate. And they do charge you a penalty if you take the money out earlier than you said you would. And some, or actually most CDs will guarantee a certain rate of interest for the entire life of the CD. So now you've got a fixed interest rate instead of a variable interest rate. So you can lock in that rate, but then some of them will have an adjustable rate. So you have an option. Then there's sometimes you can get what's called a bump up. A bump up CD that would allow you to increase the interest rate to a higher rate if the rates are going up. And so that would also allow you at that time to put more money in. So now let's talk about those advantages and disadvantages. So the advantage then, now that we've gone over generally what a CD is, one advantage is that the rates are higher typically than on that savings account. And so that's because you're locking you're agreeing to keep your money there for a longer period of time versus the savings account where you can just take your money out whenever you want. Also, that fixed rate. If you get a fixed rate CD, then that's an advantage because you don't have to worry if interest rates generally go down, that the interest rate on your CD is going to go down. Now, on the downside, remember we have an early withdrawal penalty. And those penalties could be significant. So you really have to think twice about how long can I really afford to keep this money locked away in this CD, or if you decide that you need to get the money, factoring in that you're going to lose some of it because of the penalty. Another thing is that the fixed rate could be a disadvantage. Because if you have a variable rate and interest rates go up, you could get a higher rate. So a fixed rate is really only an advantage if you think interest rates are going down, but it's a disadvantage if you think interest rates will go up. And then finally, the minimum deposit is something that you don't always have with a savings account, and it could be as high as $500. So that's a lot higher upfront cost than if you were opening up a savings account. So let's stop there and then we'll come back and finish up with money market accounts and savings bonds.